What? Hello?
Hello?
Excuse me. Just dying.
Oh, are you coughing because you're vaping too much?
Probably, honestly.
Oh, you're a vapor? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No, okay.
Hardcore vapor.
Don't say that word.
Hardcore vapor.
Don't refer to me as that. I don't. That's going to be what gets me to quit, is people calling me a vapor.
Could you at least learn some like sick ass vape tricks or something?
Yeah, I would just want to be able to do the Gandalf boat. That's it. You know, you know what I'm talking about? When he
The
makes
fact
the
that you
boat?
even know what that is shows how much of an addict you've already become. I'm
The
sorry.
Gandalf what?
Yeah, I have no idea what the fuck that means.
What have I done? 1 minute. First Lord of the Rings movie. He's sitting beside Bilbo and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's been a long time coming. I gotta quit the ring or whatever. I don't know." And he's smoking a pipe and he blows a cloud that turns into a ship. You know what?
That's
Whatever.
a pipe. That's not a vape. What are you even talking about right now?
Whatever. I'm over it. In fact, I'm getting stressed out talking about this. I think I'm gonna vape.
Yeah, you need to hit a vape real quick to relieve the...
So I think the biggest question I have is Squatting Slav Guy, the YouTuber you said who stalked you. Did he when he approached you, did he ask you to squat with him?
Sorry. He did not. No. Wow, that was a weird situation. I remember right after that seeing like all these like hardcore criticism videos coming out about me and feeling like, man, just like maybe I should have just had a coffee with him and been
Maybe
nice.
you should have squatted with him. Maybe
I should have just squatted with him.
Yeah. I'm guessing, you know, that's like a second date kind of thing. You know, move on to squatting. Second date.
Just squatted and vaped together. Oh, yeah, this is what I mean when I was talking about the manifesto. Like, it's totally just like a friends club. And then when like drama ever happens, I know you guys just got to get over the way I say drama. If I see anything in the chat, you're getting banned.
You guys can
whenever
stay in my
drama,
chat, stay space to make fun of our accent.
Yeah, okay. Whenever it would happen, like it wouldn't be people looking at the evidence and critically thinking about it. And behind the scenes, you could see all this play out, but the public probably wouldn't know. But like behind the scenes, everyone knew who was friends with each other, who got invited to whose parties, who got to go on whose shows based on personal preference, not really political capability. And so whenever something would go down and someone would be accused of something, doesn't matter what it was, stealing money, rape, whatever, it would be total team sports who supported them and who didn't. It would be, we personally like you, so everything said about you is a lie. We personally hate you. Everything that said about you is true. Like there was too little like objective analysis of the actual evidence available whenever that stuff happened. I think it's getting better now. I genuinely think like maybe it's just like the groups I'm engaging with now are a little different, but like a lot of the people that I've met in the Twitch sphere that I talked to, a lot of the people I've met that I didn't really know before I left politics, like Actual Justice Warrior, Nuance Bro, these kind of new people that I'm kind of engaging with and talking to, Marie Oakes, all new people. They're all like really chill and don't seem to be like that. But I don't know. I don't know if it was just that dynamo of 2016 that people got like that. No idea.
I still see a lot of rumors floating around, a lot of like very serious allegations kind of being thrown around in some of the dissident right spheres that don't have a whole lot of evidence behind them. But I think you are right that it is a little bit better. At least maybe the people are better that you're interacting with. So
yeah, maybe it's just my personal circle. I don't really.
Yeah.
I keep my circle small these days.
Yeah. For sure. So yeah, I just had I guess I had a few questions about your video. I did like your video a lot. I guess I was,
Thank you.
Yeah. I was curious. You said you were talking about that incident with the Airbnb. Sorry to just jump right into it.
No, it's okay.
So one thing that stood out to me about that incident.
Wait. While you're asking the question, I'm going to get myself some water. I'm super thirsty, but I can hear you.
Okay, no problem. So you talk about that incident in which this guy gets an Airbnb for you and insists on sleeping in the same bed. You turn him down. You say like, not right now, maybe in, some other time. And then later on, when you actually get the courage to turn him down, or the next day or something like that, you figured out other living arrangements. One thing that stood out to me is that it seemed like you blamed yourself for the incident. Do you think you're like it seems like to this day, when I was looking at the way you were kind of talking about it in your video, you seem to still blame yourself for that. Do you think you're being unfair to yourself?
No, like I think that that's important because taking some self-responsibility for making
Mhm.
poor decisions is the only way that you avoid them in the future. If I took no responsibility for like, I'm going to go meet some random guy, I'm going to be
Mhm.
like, yeah, let's hang out and play video games. I can sleep on your couch, no worries. Well, that was like a normal thing when I was growing up. Like I would go to friends' houses all the time.
Mhm.
They'd be like, "Yeah, we're going to a random friend's house to play Mario Kart. You can sleep on the couch. Never any problems." But I
Mhm.
I really took for granted that I grew up in a super solid like Bible Belt community.
Yeah.
I guess like just the whole implication. It's the implication.
Because of the implication.
I don't know if you know that
Yeah, I
meme
know
from
that meme.
Always
I
Sunny
like
in
that meme.
Philadelphia, but
Yeah.
I probably should have realized the implication there. And now that I have that understanding and I can see the mistake I made,
Mhm.
now I cannot make that mistake going in the future. If I don't ever acknowledge that it's a mistake, then it's
Yeah.
not really something I should change, right? And I kind of put myself in that position again.
So I do think that I definitely see your point in, there's definitely some self responsibility in some of these situations that a person can take. But I also do think you also spoke in the same video about coming from a conservative family, and that your family kind of expected, because you're kind of you're working with other conservative people, that you would be safe. So I mean, so yeah, there is some part of it that you can take responsibility for, and you can move forward and know better in the future. But there is also a part of you, like, you just didn't know better at that age, right?
Yeah, but that's unfortunately that's how life works a lot of the time. You have to learn the
Mhm.
hard way, and that could have been a much worse experience.
Yeah.
It wasn't all things considered, it got by pretty well, pretty okay, right? Um, it could have been a much much worse learning experience, and many people do have much much worse learning
Yeah.
experiences. But that's all a part of life.
Yeah.
Um, that's how we learn, unfortunately, especially if like your direct family and your direct, situation that you grow up in and are around hmm, is not necessarily reflective of the spheres you're going to go into when you're
Mhm.
older.
Mhm.
You're probably going to have to learn the hard way for a year or two.
Mhm. Yeah.
All part of growing up.
I got an email once from a philosophy loser. I wish I could remember what he used, but some of the problems that we have when we conceptualize certain things, this is very 1984-esque, but sometimes our limitation is just the words we use. I know you guys have all seen that. There was that fucking tweet that blew up where it's like one of the biggest problems with translating from Greek is that we brought the word love over, and we only have like that one word, but in Greek, there's like 4 different types of love or whatever, right? This is like a 100,000 like tweet. You guys know what I'm talking about?
I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, yeah. No, I know what
There's
you're
like
talking about.
family love, friendship love, all this other, but we just
Mhm.
have like the one word love. Um, when this guy emailed me, he said that when we say responsibility, sometimes we're talking about 2 really different things. I don't remember which 2 terms he used, but in one sense, there's like a moral responsibility, and then in another sense, there's just kind of like a more like responsibility, like a personal responsibility thing. And because we use the same words for a lot, people will mix up the 2. If you go out as like a young woman or whatever, and you get like super wasted some night and you're with a bunch of guys or whatever, and then some bad stuff ends up happening to you, like there is a great deal of personal responsibility that you could have exercised there that you failed to do so,
Mhm.
that like in a personal sense like could have improved your situation. But in terms of like moral responsibility, there's zero blame on the woman there, because she's not like choosing to get raped. She's not the one that is like, she's not the person choosing the immoral action. But because we kind of use responsibility for everything, it's hard sometimes, I think, in our heads to separate these 2 different concepts out, where we feel like if we had like a personal failing of responsibility, somehow it was like a moral failing on ourselves, and we kind of deserved like the bad thing that happened that a bad person did to us.
I do wonder if there is a level of moral so okay, so we'll use a less intense example, but like if you repeatedly like leave your keys in your car, is it your fault that it got stolen? No, I mean, technically, like morally, it's the other person's wrong for stealing a car. But at that point, your level of laziness, continually repeating this action that is probably foolish, should be addressed. I don't know.
It's
Yeah.
always like it's a failing of personal responsibility, 100%, but the other person is choosing to do a wrong act. So the moral agency is 100% on that person. So that the choice is always like it might be quote unquote your fault that your car got broken into in a personal responsibility sense, but in a moral sense, never, because you're not choosing
Okay.
to have somebody break your car. Yeah.
Okay. Here's something that's more of a moral sense one.
Mhm.
Let's say you are driving your friend's car and you leave the keys in the ignition and go into a gas station or something, and you go outside and it gets stolen. Now, through your action, which was irresponsible, you've hurt someone else.
Mhm.
Is that kind of leaning more on the you've not just had a responsibility failing, but a moral failing?
I mean, you could argue there that there was a moral failing, but the moral failing isn't that the car was stolen. The moral failing is that like somebody else entrusted you to their property and you didn't take the
Mm.
necessary safeguards to make sure something bad didn't
Yeah,
happen.
because I think there's a lot of stuff with kids, especially, right?
Mhm.
You do things that are kind of not intentionally bad, but you forget to
Mhm.
put something away, this or that. A kid can get seriously hurt, and I think that can maybe lean towards more of a or like your laziness or indiscretion needs to be addressed because it's going to
Mhm.
hurt other people. So I don't know. What Yeah,
Yeah,
what
for sure.
point is negligence like malicious, I guess?
Yeah, I think it just the
Yeah.
biggest difference is going to be whether you're dealing with another moral agent or not, right? Like if you're a little bit reckless with your kid, like there's like a personal like responsibility there that is not good. But if it's like if somebody's like sneaking into your house and like taking your kid or kidnapping your kid from the park, like they're the ones made. It's not like your fault that it happened.
Mhm,
Maybe there's
mhm.
like a personal responsible failing there that can be addressed for sure. Like morally, you're not choosing for your kid to get kidnapped or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Say generally.
do you think that you were taking a moral responsibility in that situation?
I just think I did. I did a stupid thing. That's
Okay.
I just think I did something that was dumb. And looking back on it now, yeah. I I, I don't think you'll change my mind on that either if you're trying to. I think
No, no, no,
we
I'm
all
not.
do we
I'm
all
just
do dumb
curious.
things in our
Yeah.
lives that
So,
aren't
yeah.
necessarily like a
Yeah.
character flaw, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. I mean, I'm all about like taking personal responsibility and things like that. It's just the type of how much it's I guess the type of blame that you're putting on yourself. So is it like a reasonable amount of personal responsibility, or is it like actual um this like more moral kind of blame that you're
I'd
putting
say
on
I
yourself?
put I put enough blame on myself that it would never happen again. You
Yeah.
know,
Hmm.
that's the whatever blame on myself necessary so that I don't make said stupid decision again. Whether that be a small amount or a large amount, I think that's actually the important part, right? It's
Hmm.
taking the degree of accountability that ensures you protect yourself.
I didn't know you guys were talking before this. I'm so sorry for interrupting you guys.
No, no,
You're
I
good.
Oh, okay. What were you guys talking about?
bit about the
She was being
manifesto.
super pedantic about shooting flares at immigrants or something. She got really mad about it.
Okay.
That too. That too. Should we? Unless you had if you want to do like a full proper. If you have a ton of questions about the manifesto, we can absolutely go through that. If
I
you
just
don't,
had
we
some
can bring
general
Pisco in to
questions.
question me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we could.
yeah,
I
we'll
mean,
do
yeah, if
that.
Pisco wants to come in and ask some questions. Um, but I did have I did have some other questions. Let me message him first though and see because I just added him as a friend. So hey,
Oh shit! I already know what these questions are going to be about.
Uh-oh.
You didn't have any part. Wait, well, I don't want to spoil now. I already know what it's going to be about. Do you? What do you
Any
think it's going to be
part?
about? Any
Spoil it for
part?
me. I have no idea. No
You can't
idea.
possibly imagine.
Nope.
Okay. I don't
Any
think I want
part?
to. I don't think I want to spoil.
so another thing that I noticed is you talked about how you came from this conservative family and then being part of this movement you felt like you would be safe. What do you think was like the biggest culture shock to you when you started kind of working in politics and things like that?
It's actually, it kind of scares me looking back how quickly I adjusted. It definitely like the party scene on the right. I wasn't expecting it to be basically the exact. I guess we're all human, right? I just wasn't expecting it to be exactly the same as like any other scene, right? It's basically the same as any club you'd go to, any young people that enjoy drinking lots, doing drugs, whatever it might be. Just it's all kept secret.
You thought you were going to be like doing conferences on Saturday night and all going to church together on Sunday morning.
I don't know what I was expecting. I wasn't really expecting that. But obviously I get it. People are human beings. They enjoy having a drink, going out with friends, getting a bit rowdy. It's just it becomes a problem when obviously becomes a problem when you're an alcoholic or whatever. But then the other problem is when you start taking these harsh moral judgments towards others. Like, look at this degenerate at the club taking, 5 shots and twerking. And it's like, well, you were kind of doing that last week. That's what I took a big issue with. Not the fact that people have these failings or there's these weak points or, go out and have a drink every once in a while, which there's nothing wrong with. It was seeing people, the hypocrisy, obviously. I think that's what anyone in any political movement takes the most issue with.
So Lycan as well wanted to ask some questions. Do you mind if I add him to the group?
Yeah, for sure. Anyone can ask me questions.
It's
I'm
going to
up
be
here
a
for
whole
a fight.
roast in here. Oh, man.
Get hit the vape.
I'll
Stop, I
bring
thought you said you
Lycan
were
in
quitting.
first. I'll bring Lycan in first, and then I'll bring Pisco in a little bit after. So,
Sorry, someone just asked me, Lauren, how was the backlash? How's it been so far? Any lawsuits? I've gotten some private messages, but nothing too bad. So far, it's been mostly support. Like I said, I don't think there's any. I know there's like, unless someone like edited a screenshot or made something up. Everything I've said is absolutely truthful. I was very careful to make sure it was. So,
do you expect any responses from?
Tommy Robinson said he's going to do a response, which will be interesting because I think I had the most receipts for his section.
Oh boy, that's going to be interesting.
It's like all on video, and it's all on his own video, right?
He's still active too, right?
His own post.
Or
he just had a book launch yesterday.
Yeah,
it's tough because I don't have anything personally against Tommy at all. Like, God bless him. Hope his book launch goes well. I didn't want Lucy Brown to have to live for the rest of her life holding that burden and having people hate her for something she didn't do.
Yeah, that was probably one of the more interesting parts of your video, I think, was talking about was his name Muhammad
Ali Dawa.
Or Ali Dawa, yeah, sorry. It was I get all of them mixed up.
All of them?
No, I swear it's not racism. It's not racism, okay? Those are my people, kind of, okay? So it's it's not racism.
All brown people are just the same? Okay.
They're all the same.
All your people?
They're all the same, yeah. No.
Not all brown people, all Muslims, okay? Get it right.
Yeah, all Muslims.
Are you Muslim?
Yeah, I come from a Muslim family. I'm
Muslim.
I'm
She's culturally Muslim. That's the correct.
Culturally
you say
Muslim.
culturally Muslim.
So she's saying they're all the same.
No, you can't even say that though, because the people like Ali Dawa, people like who all follow that type of person, they get really mad if you say cultural Muslim. They'll be like, well, you can't say that. You're watering down the deen, and all that, and so they don't like it. They don't even like ex-Muslim. They just don't want you to use Muslim anywhere in anything. So hello, Lycan.
We want nothing to do with you.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah.
Lycan.
Steven, what's up? Lauren, do you ever think about
Lycan?
Oh, you beautiful queen. Do you ever think about the fact that
stop posting lewds on your Twitter? I'm gonna have to unfollow you. It's not.
Lycan, you don't keep it up. Lycan, they're beautiful.
I think I've actually muted your account. I don't.
Why? I have to do the same thing, honestly.
Wait, hold on. Okay, I'm sorry. I came here to talk serious politics, but I guess if we're gonna go down that road, are they offensive to you? Is it because you're trying to be pure for your husband and they give you thoughts that you're ashamed of? What's going on?
Okay. We're cutting off this conversation.
I can answer this.
Because
I can answer this.
every major account that ever unfollows me, the reason they give is the fucking lewds. Chill the fuck out. So I want to know why the lewds bother you so much.
Wait. Start an OnlyFans. If there are people follow you on
They're
Twitter.
not that lewd. I'm in swim trunks.
We've had
plenty of people
over politics. I follow you to see your points on politics, and sometimes you respond and have engagements. People will follow you on OnlyFans if you want to go put that stuff there. Like,
I'm in swim trunks.
Make an Instagram. Make an Instagram.
Do you feel so
people do that. Yeah, there are people with OnlyFans that just do bikinis. All right, you know what you're doing. You know what you're up to.
I know. Yes, I know what I'm doing. I'm getting a little bit of internet attention.
Is if I pull up Twitter in public and I see some dude with barely anything on and only his junk is covered, and now everybody around me who sees my phone is going to think I'm looking at dudes. Like,
hey, you know what? Wait, are you a lesbian?
No, I'm not a lesbian. They're going to think I'm looking at lewd pictures in public, and then then it's weird.
Listen, I'm just saying I feel I'm being persecuted for being comfortable in my sexuality and my body. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, it's actually art. It
really is. Have you seen me?
Anyway.
Thank you, Eldon.
Anyway, the type of hypocrisy from the Republican Party when it comes to abortions, when it comes to homosexuality, when it comes to any of those when it comes to drugs, you have these people doing these things behind the scenes. Is there really any comparable example of liberal hypocrisy?
Yes. All the time. Like, have you seen Hassan? Have you seen the BLM founders?
No. Hold on. I said liberal. I didn't say dumb fuck fake socialist. I said liberal.
Yeah. Like, from the COVID stuff. That was like 24/7.
Hold on. Like
climate change.
Hold on, because this would be
owning like private jets and flying around.
This is what
climate change.
Yeah, sure.
Don't let her soy out.
This is what conservative Lycan would have said. If you had showed me fucking like my conservative candidate of choice or person of choice, like having a little party and during the COVID time while they were saying, hey, you need to mask up, I'd have been like, come on, guys. It's a small little gathering. Odds are they have access to better testing than we do. There's nothing really that wrong with them gathering.
We're talking about people traveling when they weren't supposed to, not wearing masks.
So you're not talking about the California governor having a dinner or anything like that.
I'd have to go pull up this, or people go. Yeah, there's like 1,000 examples of these in
all of these things. I would have get. Yeah, sure. We're talking COVID. I'm not talking COVID. I'm talking about the more serious stuff. I'm talking about when they're legislating against women's rights. When they're talking about women's rights, when they're talking about homosexuality and gay marriage and things like that, when they're talking about like the groomer shit, and then you find out some fucking conservatives getting pegged by a trans woman, like then it's like, cool, maybe fucking chill.
So this is where you're going to see a big difference for sure when it comes to like private and personal life stuff. Obviously, on all of the political policy stuff, I think everyone's a bit of a hypocrite.
So hold on, wait.
What's the saying? It's like
what you just said.
If you want to catch the left in hypocrisy, follow the money. If you want to catch the right, follow the sex or whatever. But when it comes to like personal life stuff, conservatives have significantly more personal life restrictions on them through their ideology than the left ever have. So you're obviously just going to consistently find more hypocrisy on the right.
But when we're using their platforms to advocate against those rights for people
much higher. Yeah, of course, because you're going to have hypocrites and grifters. I hate that freaking word in everything that gravitate towards positions of power.
Well, no, sure, yes. You know what? If you want to say like liberals are out there saying that conservative politicians, you're taking money. Go ahead.
Feminism stuff. You always see these. I have to find his name. There was a big writer who got called out like last year. He was like something the second. I gotta.
You're talking about like some guy saying they're a feminist and then it's some sexual harassment
feminist,
shit.
Journalist. Right.
That's an issue with dudes, though, I feel.
Yeah, that's an issue with dudes. That's not like they're going to be a bunch of progressive dudes that in the same way call themselves feminists and do some creepy shit.
It's like the same thing with conservative dudes who...
Jack Smith, I think was his name. Jack Smith.
Conservative dudes who claim to have like family values and then, fuck around and stuff, so...
Yeah, hardcore feminist. He was like the go-to feminist guy at Mike. Jack Smith was accused by multiple women of sexual misconduct and got let go from the company. It was like a whole thing. So I think that stuff is a big thing you see. And then also on racism or homophobia, all
Well,
the
no, hold on,
social
qualify it.
restrictions.
Give me some examples, because I can give you a ton of examples of anti-trans, anti-gay, all this other conservative shit.
Hassan calling a politician
The
who he
F-slur.
disagreed
Sure, but you know
with,
what
the
Hassan isn't
S-word.
doing? Hassan isn't using his platform and or political power through election to prevent the rights of homosexuals. So while Hassan's being a dumb fucking piece of shit, stupid ass loser calling a gay person a fucking fag,
Yes,
we're
but
not talking about that.
There are people affecting policy saying no one should be allowed to use that word, that anything that's considered hate speech or racism should be banned.
They're affecting policy with that.
Meanwhile, they're going around saying cracker 24/7 and yelling
Sure, but that
slurs
in
about
no
white
way, shape, or
people
form is
and-
really disenfranchising any groups. Whereas you have
It
conservative
seems like you always have like a
tapping
weasel
their
out of
foot in
any
the fucking
hypocrisy I
bathroom.
show you on the
No,
left.
because we're talking about hypocrisy that's actually meaningful, right? Like if you want to talk about
How is it not? Wait.
okay,
How is racism not meaningful hypocrisy?
racism is meaningful, but
How
I'm
is
talking about
calling
people-
Stephen Agusano like 24/7?
Okay, wait, hold on. Before we go to this,
hypocrisy?
Lycan, define what do you mean by meaningful, so that we stop like giving.
When I
examples
talk about
for
meaningful, I'm
ourselves.
talking about someone in a position where you are a politician voting against gay marriage or something like that, or advocating on your platform against gay marriage, and you have a giant swath of this country being against gay marriage because of the words you're saying, and then you're fucking dicking down dudes. That is a significant level of hypocrisy compared to someone like Hassan, who in many ways is on the right of systemic racism and shit like that, but he's saying the word cracker. Like that is way less impactful than someone like fucking Anthony Weiner.
I mean, I think that
it's hypocrisy, sure, but we're talking about actual impact. You know what? Most of this online
it has to be someone that's passing policy.
No, it doesn't have to be someone that's passing policy. It has to be someone that's on the side pushing for policy.
You put so many like bumpers around this conversation of what it has to be. It's
like on your side, you would say like an example of this would be a Republican lawmaker is anti-abortion, but his mistress gets an abortion, right?
Exactly.
But
like that is way more significant.
And you think there's no equivalent on the left of people doing something like that?
No, I don't. I'm asking for an example.
You don't think someone that's like hardcore. You don't think someone like Leonardo DiCaprio, who's petitioning at the United Nations to have more carbon tax and climate change policy, who's flying a private jet everywhere, is not comparable to that?
Okay, just as a real quick fact check on Leonardo DiCaprio, I'm pretty sure he's like the worst example to bring up, because doesn't he like carbon offset literally every single thing he does?
It doesn't fucking matter if he's flying private jets everywhere when he doesn't want anyone else to.
Well, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't want anyone else to if you're not contributing to the environment. But I'm pretty sure he literally carbon offsets every single thing he does, like even with his dwelling. But I understand the
okay, but it's something like that. There's a lot of examples of people like that. But would that be an appropriate example to you?
Yeah, like for example, I believe in climate change, and I believe that climate change is serious, needs to be taken seriously. But you know what? A cruise is one of my favorite fucking vacations. But I also have no impact on anything in life. So we're talking about the high level people. We're talking about people who actually impact it. We're talking about people who drive the narrative. So when you're driving an anti-gay narrative and you get caught fucking someone in the ass, yeah, I think that is the ultimate hypocrisy we're talking about here. So if we want to talk about Hassan talking about socialism and stupid shit like that, that's fucking dumb. No one's socialist in America. It's not going to happen, and it's conservative fear mongering.
Okay, so what about people who like want to defund the police, calling the police? Like you see these videos all the time where they're like,
those are fucking hypocrites.
I hate the police, and then as soon as something goes wrong, they get on their phone and they're like, holy shit,
absolutely,
get your asses over here. Why are you taking so long?
Yeah, they're dumb fucks, but you know what? They're not in any meaningful way.
Gosh. Holy shit! Nothing that I give is meaningful.
Hold on. I just first of all bit the bullet. I led with biting the bullet and saying, yeah, those people are fucking stupid.
Okay. Great.
So I started with that. I haven't heard you say anything about these fucking conservatives. They're calling for anti-gay legislation. I just did a whole video
talking about how hypocrisy is bad. Like,
no, you talked about why hypocrisy is bad, but you didn't then do the follow-up, which is like, and therefore maybe if these people are so into it while secretly while actually going against it publicly, maybe you know what? Publicly, it shouldn't be that bad. I don't hear you saying any of that.
I actually disagree. I think she talked about the dissident right, and she said she said that she felt the failures of the dissident right weren't because of deplatforming, but more because of the dissident right itself failing itself. I thought that was a pretty interesting observation.
Lycan, did you even watch the video?
Whatever Destiny watched, I watched the majority of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Based.
Okay, so what I think the
So I came
barriers.
here.
Wait. I think the barriers in this conversation you've set up for me are a bit ridiculous. But what I will give you is that you're obviously just going to have more people on the right hitting and being involved in these hypocrisy scandals when they have significantly more social restrictions on themselves than the left within their ideology. That's just an obvious.
I don't know if that's
happen.
necessarily true. Just as a counterexample to that, like I think that people on the left are a little bit more extreme when it comes to like how to treat women or sexual harassment. So you'll get something like Trump will have like the grab him by the pussy tapes that come out and nobody really cares. But Al Franken actually stepped down from the Senate because of like comedy skits he did like 15 years ago. I think that would be an example of like the left holding themselves to a higher standard on one particular issue versus conservatives.
Ooh, someone just made a good point in my chat. Lauren, an example for liberals being hypocritical would be their support of affordable housing, but when these changes are implemented in their own communities, they will go to their city councils and object. I think that's pretty common for, a lot of people. Would that be a reasonable example, Lycan, or is this doesn't quite hit your threshold like everything else I've said?
I think it doesn't hit the level of significance that I was coming in at. But I think that is no. I mean, I have no problem calling my fucking side a hypocrite when they're hypocritical. Yeah. So if they are calling for affordable housing, but like liberals, not all liberals are versed in engaging on housing issues the way that conservatives are all engaging on LGBT issues. Would you agree with that?
Sorry.
Like if you wanted to show me fucking a politician who is advocating for those kind of things, and they were at one of their HOA meetings, and someone got them on video advocating against some, better housing like ruling. Yeah, I'd say absolutely fuck those people. But that I don't see that at the level.
I think
of what I'm talking
like
about.
the a big personal hypocrisy one that would be maybe comparable to the sex stuff would be just definitely the policing and race stuff. I think
yeah, and you're gonna get me here.
There's there's very little acknowledgement from the left often that the police are in Black communities because there's high crime there. There's always very little acknowledgement of that. Sometimes they'll just deny the high crime altogether, but then they'll never go and live there. They'll be like, wow, people are afraid of these communities. That's bigotry. They shouldn't be. The police should just leave. It would be perfectly fine. It's all the police causing the problems. You will never find their asses living in those cities. Never. Or those areas.
Unless they represent them in Congress.
Yeah, and they can pay a lot for private security.
Districts are usually pretty big too. I don't think you're going to find somebody like living in the hood being a representative generally, right?
Yeah, I don't think they have to, as long as they are accurately and appropriately representing the people within their district.
I don't think there's much acknowledgement. I think that that's a big oversight for the left that they should touch on more, that the right usually gets, is just being more anti-crime. I don't know why a lot of progressives they'll literally be making excuses for shoplifters half the time. It's crazy.
Well, hold on. Wait, there's a difference between acknowledging that like it's not your fault that you ended up in this position, but you are responsible for your actions. That is a pretty fair way to look at systemic problems within this country. Would you not agree?
Yeah,
it's
but
not your fault, but you are responsible.
So wait, what kind of crime are you talking about?
So if we talk about any kind of bad area upbringing, where we look at issues with those communities and how they produce certain number of whatever criminals or people who engage in some sort of illegal activity, you have to look at why that is. You have to look at the system they're brought up in. You have to look at the environment they're brought up in, and you can say, you know what, we understand that by your environment, the cards were stacked against you. But at the end of the day, you are responsible for the actions you took. And that's what I'm talking about.
No, but responsibility tends to not really. I mean, most of it goes on, the cops escalated it. This is the cops' fault.
Well, no. We're not talking about that. We haven't got to cops shooting someone or anything like that.
Well, hold on. A lot of people in the States
when you say the cops' fault, like if you want to talk about over-policing, like do you deny that over-policing has any impact on an area?
What do you mean by over-policing? Because the majority of times police are in an area is because they're being called there a lot. So what we call
No.
over policing is
No,
maybe it's
over-policing is
actually
an
the
intent-
residents' fault for calling them too much.
Not at all. Over policing is an overrepresentation of police in one particular area, over enforcing crime. So a great example is marijuana laws. You are 3 times more likely to go to jail or be arrested for marijuana possession as a black person versus as a white person.
Yeah, but what do you think that might be? What do you think that might be linked to?
Are you saying that black people carry more weed than white people? Or
Yeah.
is it potential
What do you think this might be linked to, Lycan?
What do you mean? Why don't you just tell me?
How about the fact that black people just tend to get arrested more often because they commit more crime and thus are probably going to be found with marijuana and be searched by police more than white people?
Well, hold on. Do you think that all those people found with marijuana and prosecuted for marijuana were done because there was an initial crime first? Or do you think it's maybe that a few more extrajudicial searches, a few, little like, hey, we're targeting black people? That's the problem.
I'd have to see solid examples that were like, yeah, we targeted you because you're a black person, which maybe they do exist, maybe they are out there. And I'd have to see the research on this. But I think it's pretty safe to assume that overrepresentation is probably linked to them just being arrested more often.
If you are a cop,
they have it. And then the other thing is lots of smaller charges are used to add up so that if someone has done something wrong or they're a repeat offender, sometimes cops will try to find charges that are so like if you get pulled over by a cop and you've got a tail light out, half the time they'll let you go. But if you're being a real dick or you've had lots of problems in your past, they'll write that down. So I think a lot of this, I don't know, I'd have to look at the research more, but some of this could be attributed to them trying to bring charges down to, add sentencing time, whatever it might be, to other crimes that they're already investigating or in the courts for. And then I think a lot of it would probably just have to do with the fact that their arrest rates in general are higher, so there'd be more searches going on. But if you could put some evidence that is like, yeah, we're doing it because you're black, then I'd be happy to take a look at that.
I think you both agree on what you're saying. Just a quick, so Lycan and Lauren, I think you're both saying that black people are more likely to get arrested for having marijuana, not because they use marijuana more, but because they're in areas that are policed more for whatever reason. Therefore, they're more likely to get arrested for it. Right? I don't think you disagree on that.
Sure.
You're just saying you're both talking about.
But I think Lycan is trying to make it sound like the policing it's not necessary in some of these areas, which I'm kind of disagreeing and saying actually in a lot of cases when there's what appears to be an overrepresentation of cops, usually that's because there is a lot of genuine crime and they'll pick up on smaller crime as well.
But why is there so much crime in those areas? Why
because
is there so
black
much
people
more
are poor and poverty causes you to commit crime.
Why are those black communities so poor?
There's a lot of historical issues there. There's a lot of government issues there. There's a lot of things that add up.
Have led to problems within those.
A lot of poor policies made. Yeah, a lot of fatherlessness that happens.
Why is there so much fatherlessness in the black community?
I mean, some people on the right, they'll point to the fact that there was like massive incentives created for single mothers at that time within black communities.
Do you think they're those mothers just
some people will point to welfare culture, welfare state. I don't know. I'd have to look at it a little more.
No, the reason is because of all those. You hit on it right in the first part. There was a lot of governmental policy and a bunch of other things that made those areas kind of shit. And then you started with the over policing because people were like, "Oh, well, there's some crime happening here," and
but
probably
the
also racism
is in response to crime.
No. Hold on.
Like wait. No, the solution isn't to get rid of the cops.
Started with racism. The policing. This isn't just something that happened in the last 10 fucking years. The policing started with racism. So you have the over policing based on racist tendencies 100 years ago plus, and that continued, and that's why we call it systemic.
But do you think we solve the issue of
do you think we solve the issue by over policing and arresting a bunch of black men, taking the black men out of the community, and then saying, "Ha, this is just fatherless behavior. Wonder why they don't have fathers."
No, we do things like change policy around marijuana, which both the left and the right, for the most part, other than some very traditional.
Sure, that's marijuana, yes, but overall, that will still have a ton of police in the area over police
because there's a lot of crime being committed there. It's not over. Oh, you're saying
yes, so we ought to probably invest in these communities a little bit, shouldn't we? We should probably.
It's not an over policing problem. It's an over crime problem.
No, you're missing the part where you have to look beyond the now. You have to look way past to why these areas are over policed. The statistic that If we're going to go down your path of it's because there's so much crime, we have to look at the reason why there is so much crime, and we have to go back way back to over policing in these
You think
communities.
too much policing caused the crime?
I think that too much policing destabilizes the area and causes more crime. Yes.
Okay, so what do you think would happen if we got rid of the police?
Well,
Do you think
hold
it
on.
would
We're not talking about
stabilize?
defunding the police. We're talking about appropriate enforcement of the law. When you have, I use the one example of marijuana because that's the one I have the best statistical knowledge of. But the reality
police are a
is, no, hold on,
responsive
no. I use that one because that's the one I have the best statistical knowledge of. But the reality is that cops are more likely to enforce laws against black people than they are against white people. So while they're in these areas and while they're doing these things, they are enforcing it against black people more, destabilizing those communities and contributing to the system that creates more criminals. So yeah, sure, you can say, yeah, more crime
So
is
okay,
happening here,
wait.
but you have to follow it to
Everyone
the
likes to
original
use
source.
everyone likes to use marijuana as an example because most people today are like, you know what, it's pretty bad that we're putting people in jail for having marijuana. Most people agree with that, and those policies are changing slowly but surely across the world. What about something like sexual crime? Like, is that, oh, it's an over policing fault? That guy raped her because he was poor. Like, there's, I
Are
think
you
that we
saying that
actually need to
black people are?
no, I'm saying that this whole idea of focusing so much on the past for people's shitty actions today, yeah, it's a part of it, but I think the left put way too much weight on the past for shitty things people do today.
This is getting way too spicy for me.
Not at all. Like, Steven, I'm gonna ask for a lifeline here, just because maybe you can
Yeah.
articulate it better than me. But like,
Okay.
you know what I'm getting at with as far as like shit that's happened over the last 100+ years when it comes to policing and how that's still echoing throughout black communities today.
Yeah, I think the issue you've got is you're talking about the diagnosis side, which I think is worth talking about, but she's talking about the like fixing the problem side. And
Well,
I think
yeah,
these
but
two
the
things
fixing the
become
problem
disconnected.
side, yeah, the fixing the problem side is
Here's like the issue, right?
Uh-huh.
There are a couple of things that we kind of have to address. There is more crime in black communities than in
sure,
non-black
absolutely.
communities. Therefore, there needs to be more policing in black communities versus non-black communities.
But how that
Therefore,
policing is executed needs
you
to
can
be
say how the
different.
policing is executed, but so long as there are laws on the books saying that like marijuana is illegal, it's going to be a fact of the matter that they're going to get caught more for having marijuana. That's going to be like a statistical artifact of the like necessity of the policy, right? There's no way around that aside from changing those laws. So I think it would be good. So like a good pushback is like we should get rid of marijuana laws because it's causing a lot of like dumb shit due to an artifact of policing in majority black neighborhoods. That's a really good argument. But saying like we need to cut back on the amount of police available when there are more serious crimes going on, like sexual crimes or murders or vandalism, is probably not good.
No, and no part of me, I don't think. Anyway, if I said that, I'll retract with the I misspoke part. But did I say anything like that? Like where we should stop?
Well, that's what it
policing
sounds like you're
crime?
leading when you're saying like it's not
No.
fair that they
Okay,
get
so
more.
yeah.
Well, okay, so then what is your prescription? Because I think that's what Lauren's getting at. What is
The prescription is that we deal with things like marijuana laws. We find out laws that are
I don't
archaic.
disagree with you, and I've been
No,
saying that
I know
the
you
whole
agree with
time.
that part, sure. But then we have to look at the next step, which is we have to invest in these communities. We have to help these communities get out of this cycle because we can't just say, okay, cool, we took away marijuana laws, everything's fine. There's still going to be the cycle of poverty and poverty leading to other issues within those communities. And we have to address those. And step by step, we do address those, and those communities will get better. But Republicans don't want to invest in that. Law and order Republicans, when they
That's
say that
because the
stupid shit,
solutions are always
wait,
let's
hold on.
throw more money at
Because
problem than
well, hold
everything.
on. Yeah, sure. If we want to, like, we can belittle money and say, throwing money doesn't do anything. No, you have to
Yeah, well, did
effectively
the
employ.
massive
You have to
monetization of
effectively
did black
employ the money.
communities really help? Yeah, sure. Exactly.
Like when people talk reparations, I don't think about cutting checks for every black person in America. I think about understanding that these communities have problems because of well beyond the time of slavery.
I think we're past. I think we're past. If we just throw money at it, it'll go away. I think we're past that.
No, I'm not talking about throwing money at it. There's difference.
Okay, what would you put the money into?
I would put it into school systems. I would put it into.
There's a lot of funding going into school systems in poor communities right now. Probably more needed, better people, but there's already a lot.
Hold on. There's a difference between throwing money into the school system and effectively employing the money within the school system. And that's one of the big issues with any time the liberals want to throw money at shit. It's like it's not just about the money. You have to actually do the right thing with the money in order for it to be effective. And I think that's what it comes down to with, there needs to be a lot of social programs, community
I don't know
programs.
we're not having an argument. Like no one on this planet is going to disagree with you when you say we need to.
No one's going to disagree with
money
it until
more
it comes down to
effectively.
fucking legislation and action and doing it.
Okay, well,
properly.
what's all right. What's a legislation that you felt was really well thought out? The money was going to go to a good place that Republicans knocked down when it comes to black schooling.
At the moment, I don't have an example for that, but I do know that I live in fucking Baltimore with the shit schooling system. Hold on, give me 2 seconds to Google something.
Yeah, okay.
How are we doing, guys?
Good. I'm gonna go get some water.
Make sure to get another vape cartridge too while you're out there.
Yeah, just my.
There was something,
Like,
and if I'm fine.
Okay, wait.
If anyone in chat remembers it,
it's not a more money thing. Okay, something that liberals are failing at that we need to do better is money is good, but it has to be used in an efficacious.
That's what I said. Did you not hear that?
Sure. Well, but you hit on that more, right? It's not just a matter of like throwing, because the problem is that, because what she'll point to, what a lot of conservatives point to, is that there are a lot of like school systems in the United States that get a fuck ton of money poured into them, and they don't produce the good results. So something that I've learned in my state, and I think this is probably true throughout the entire United States, I think it tends to be the case that private schools are usually less funded than public schools. I think that's almost always the case. But they produce like infinitely better outcomes, probably due to a lot of other reasons around them. So like, it's not so much like just the money, it's identifying like positive programs that make positive changes in people's lives and then funding those, and not just like incessantly ratcheting up the cost.
And that's what I said. I said it's not just about pouring money into it. And I even called out liberals for thinking it's just about more money. It's not. It's how you employ that money that impacts these communities.
Sure.
So like, yeah, you can give them a school $1 million, but if they don't fucking buy the right things with it or use it to fund the right people or programs, it's nothing. It does nothing.
So something that would be good. I just haven't done the research on this because fuck school. So I can't tell you off the top of my head, but like, so this is an example of what sounded like a good idea to me, but apparently for a whole bunch of reasons it didn't work. The George Bush era program of No Child Left Behind seems like an interesting idea because you're trying to give money to schools contingent upon the success of children in those schools. Now that seems like a good idea because you're giving money with strings attached. If you produce better children and test scores, then we'll be able to like fund the school more. But for some reason, I don't know why, but that failed miserably. So that would be like a good program to research. Like, what was the goal? Why did it fail?
I think part of it, if I'm recalling correctly, is that already underfunded places had worse results, so they would continue to stay underfunded, right? So
maybe that might be the case. Yeah, it feels to me like the issue is that like I've said this a million times. I think we've solved like all the easy problems in society. Like when it comes to racism, like we don't hang black people anymore. When it comes to sexism, there's not literally a guy saying like, you can't go to school to be an engineer as a woman. Like all of our problems are way more embedded at multiple levels. So when it comes to like, how do we reduce crime? It's probably not just one thing. It's probably going to be like supporting families more, getting rid of stupid laws that like throw fathers in jail for having marijuana, providing better economic opportunities, changing housing policy so people don't need cars to get away. It's probably going to be like 20 things to fix like one problem at this point because all of the problems are so like multifaceted. But the kick to conservatives here is conservatives will always just say, "Oh, personal responsibility," or "Oh, the community."
Wait.
But like conservatives never have a good answer for anything.
They never have a good answer for anything.
Hold on. Because I want Destiny. You're going to get that. I want Steven.
Yeah, okay.
Explain the personal responsibility piece to Lauren. Like why that's not, you can't just say that about someone in the black community.
Well, because if they were going to take the personal responsibility to fix their shit, they would have already done it. It's just like a worthless throwaway comment.
But why isn't personal responsibility easy
for the
black community?
But
because conservatives don't have any more personal responsibility than liberals do. The reality is that they're a product of their environment. When you look at a conservative that has a high level of personal responsibility, it's not because they chose to. It's probably because they had a good family that cultivated those ideas early on. They were probably part of a good community that reinforced those social values early on. And they probably lived in an area that provided them the economic and familial and housing opportunities to let them carry on like that. So when a person like that comes out of that area and then they look at somebody living in the ghetto and they're like, "Oh, dude, you just need to have personal responsibility like I do." Well, hold on. It takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah, I'm not making that argument, and I haven't. I've literally just been saying to throw money at things, even when you kind of focus on specific bits in schools, isn't necessarily helpful. Someone was just sending me. Someone in my chat said, in Baltimore, they spend more than $16K per student, and over 50% of students graduate with less than a 2.0 GPA. But this is probably more substantial, is this Cambridge study, which shows, I can link it in the chat, over the last 50 years in developed countries, evidence has accumulated that only about 10% of school achievement can be attributed to the schools and teachers, while the remaining 90% is due to the characteristics associated with the students. The study is called Education and Intelligence, Pity the Poor Teacher, because student characteristics are more significant than teachers or schools.
Yeah,
I'll
so
link
not
it to
to,
that.
I hate to be that guy, but I'll always be that guy. Okay, I'm the guy that watched The Wire and recommends The Wire to everybody. You've seen The Wire, right, Lycan?
No, I haven't.
What?
I know.
The
I
best
live. Well, I
example of
know.
this, yeah, I mean, like the best example of this is going to be, I think it's season 5 where they do the schools, or it might be season 4. But you've got like the super well-meaning cop that retires from the police force and goes to be a teacher, and this guy like wants to do everything he can. He wants to tutor his students. He like, I think he spends personal money like buying books for some. He does everything he can. But the reality is that by the time those students have gotten to class, shit is already over. A lot of them are tired because they're either working or they're taking care of siblings. A lot of them don't give a fuck because, like, why am I learning to be an engineer when my dad is a drug dealer or in jail or dead? Like, I know that's not the path for me. They look around in their communities. There's no jobs for these people. These guys aren't going to college, right? They don't have like the white track to Harvard or whatever that they feel like other people do. So, but like that's the issue, is that by the time the kid even shows up in class, I guess to borrow from Lauren's stat here, like 90% of the work is already done. This is why I personally, and I could be wrong, but just in my experience of going to a private school, I feel like private schools probably aren't really that much better than public schools, really. I feel like the reason why they seem better is because if your kid is going to a private school, it's because the parents really want that kid to succeed. And when you've got a whole bunch of kids going to a school where all of the families are super bought into the concept of those children succeeding, they're probably going to do pretty well, even if the school is underfunded or overfunded or whatever, I would guess. But on the other end, I think there are some basics where we all should feel like there are some like fundamental level of funding that should exist in schools. And I think there are some data-driven things that are really positive. One is every child in the United States, and if you believe anything different, you are a heartless monster that should literally be guillotined. Every child in the United States should have access to like free, like some kind of food for lunch. If the family can afford to pay for it, go for it. But if they can't, it should be provided for free. That's like one of the few like ultra data-driven things that like when kids eat more and their brains are fueled, they can learn more and do better in school. That's like one program that every single school in the country should be able to do, like free lunch for kids that can't afford it. That and like things like basic like air conditioning. Believe it or not, somebody can Google this, like AC studies, school achievement or whatever. Having air conditioning in classrooms, I think, is actually like somewhat of a predictor of success too. That schools that like can keep the air cool, you don't have to learn in like 85-degree classrooms or like 30-degree classrooms if you're Canadian. That this is like a positive thing for children. Like, there are some basics for funding that we can probably get. Your gym shouldn't have like a fucking leaky roof or something, you know.
Yep. I don't think anyone disagrees with these points.
Thanks.
By the way, I only have about 20 more minutes. So if Stardust, I'm sorry, I feel like we put you in the
It's okay.
corner. I
Here.
invited other people on, and or maybe you feel like, oh, I don't even have to work today. I can just chill.
No, it's fine. If I wrote out a whole bunch of things, but I feel like this is more interesting. So I'm gonna add Pisco to the call. So
Oh,
Fair enough.
Good
Lauren,
luck.
I still love
Oh,
you, by the way.
man.
I just want to make that known.
Okay, Lycan. You're okay too. You're all right.
Hey, everybody, can you hear me?
hi.
Loud
Yep.
and clear.
How's everyone doing?
Great now.
Good,
I
good.
think you can.
I'm getting hungry, so if I
speak a
start getting
little louder.
angry, that's why.
I'll try not
That's-
to make you any angrier.
Oof, it's already
Yeah.
backpedaling. Nice.
Listen, no, I watched your doc. Would you call it a documentary or? Are you sticking
No,
with
everyone's
manifesto?
decided to call it a documentary, but no, it's just the
It's just the
manifesto.
manifesto? Okay. Well, what's the
It would be a
difference?
lot better
Manifesto is more
produced. If
internal
it were a
and,
documentary, I wouldn't have edited it. I would have hired a professional editor.
got it. So you did all the work editing and
Yeah.
preparing.
I mean, I had friends help me behind the scenes, but no one who wants to be named.
Right. Well, I appreciated seeing sort of your perspective, especially sort of the early days of Lauren, and I like to see sort of what was influencing you at the time. I thought it was super interesting, and I was having a great time. But there was one point in the documentary that like got me a little bit upset.
Uh-oh.
In
What's
fact,
that?
like pretty upset.
Yeah.
And I want to start by making sure I understand that aspect from your perspective. And that is, you make a lot, I think, of the free speech issues with your immigration status. Is that right?
Sorry, repeat that.
That you make a lot of the fact that that there were conditions on your entry and your visa to be in Australia, that there were issues related to what you had said in the past.
Yeah.
And you felt that was unfair and unjust, right?
Yep.
You wanted to be with like the family that you loved and to be with them. And Australia was putting conditions on you.
Yes, but the conditions, I know this is where people would point out the hypocrisy. Haha, look, Lauren, now don't you support open borders? No, absolutely not. I don't think conditions for getting into a country should be based on political opinions that half the country share. Like, you shouldn't be not allowed in a country because you have criticisms of Christianity or criticisms of Islam or whatever, especially when a large portion of said country feel the exact same way. If you want to block someone from coming into a country because they don't have the financial stability and will have to rely on the government for that, if you want to block someone because they have a severe criminal record or because they're a terrorist, totally reasonable. If you want to block someone because they came in illegally and didn't apply the right way, which I did, totally reasonable. I do not think it is reasonable. I don't think it's okay to block people because of their political opinions, even if they are someone who has political opinions different than me. If there was a Muslim that's like really hardcore Islamic, let's say they even defend the like Sharia law or something. That's a bit crazy, actually. But let's say that in their personal life, or they posted on Twitter or Facebook something, but they've applied to legally come in. They've said, yep, when I'm there, I'll follow all of your laws. Yep, I have the financial stability to come in. I just don't think it would be justified to say, well, you got these political opinions, so you're going to have to never speak. Here's the thing.
Let's talk about that.
This is how I know it wasn't because I'm actually a danger, like a physical danger, is they would let me in so long as I wouldn't speak publicly about my opinions. So it was literally entirely a thought crime thing.
Let's talk about that. So in your mind, that there are justified reasons not to let people in, and there are unjustified reasons not to let people in.
Yeah, I'm for legal immigration. I'm not. This is the whole like ridiculous.
We're defining the
I'm
scope
not against immigration.
Excuse me, Lauren. We're defining the scope of what is legal immigration. Everything that happened to you was above board. You'd agree, according to the laws of Australia, correct?
Sorry, repeat that.
The question we're in right now, we're defining what is legal, and what happened to you was legal, right?
Technically, it's legal, but I think
okay.
the problem is when you have like border security discretion, or you have this gray zone where the government can kind of just make up their mind. I think those are really quote unquote problematic, as much as I hate that word, laws. I think it's reasonable to have vacuum where you've got these distinctions that are like, yep, if you have an extensive criminal record, then you go on vacuum. Yep, if you have been engaged with and partaken in terrorism, you go on vacuum. But to have rules that are like, if someone in this department doesn't like your character, which is what was my problem, is my character assessment.
You think good moral character is not a permissible? You think good moral character?
Yeah, right. But it depends who's defining what good moral character is. Because if I decide good moral character is, you're gay, you can't come in, no pooftas, right? Well, then it depends who's defining good moral character.
If you don't mind, I want to sort of go along my train of thought. Is that okay with you? Sure. My train of thought is, in your mind, there are permissible and impermissible grounds on which to deny someone entrance into your country. That's correct, right? Okay.
Yep.
And we can hear you typing, just a heads up.
So, for instance, it would be in your mind, just like having wrong views, that would be an impermissible ground to deny someone entrance into a country. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't think wrong think should be a crime.
What about having the wrong culture?
I still, it depends what aspects of culture. So if culturally you can't assimilate to the laws and culturally you can't assimilate to the language, I think language and laws are absolute necessities.
What is culture if not an extension of speech and values? Australia says that, assuming your version of events, Australia says, Lauren Southern, you don't fit into our culture.
Okay, but here's the problem. They're not really putting that in fairly, right? Half of their immigrants wouldn't be allowed in culturally.
I totally agree. I don't necessarily agree in your case, but I agree it's a lot of discretion to just say, just because you don't fit into my culture, you can't come into the country. But isn't that exactly the kind of policies you've been pushing for the last decade?
No, I've been pushing against illegal immigration for the most part. I think it's a problem to have mass immigration of people. I think that you can have some people that come in that have different cultures, but you just can't have mass amounts to the
We're
point
not talking
where it
about
changes your own system.
This is before the point. We're deciding what is legal and illegal, and so I don't really want to hear from you again that like I'm against illegal immigration. We are deciding in the first instance right now what is and what is not illegal immigration. And my question for you, it seems like there's part of your philosophy that maintains that it's okay. One of the permissible grounds for rejecting and making inadmissible someone into a country or getting a visa or what have you is that they're the wrong culture. Is that correct or is that incorrect?
When have I said that?
Don't you think that cultural competency should be a ground by which to reject someone?
I think language and legal agreements, that the only reason that I have problems with cultural differences is typically because of language and legal disagreements. So like if someone is
legal
like,
disagreement. What do you mean by legal disagreements?
So like
Someone who doesn't agree with laws?
Yeah, so like if you're partaking in female genital mutilation and you've moved to Europe,
Not
then you're
partaking.
probably,
We'll just keep it on. Let's say that you
or
think
even,
that.
even like you support it and you have a mass amount of people move into an area and
let's-
start voting for
I'm
changes.
not talking about that. I mean, we're talking
female
about
genital mutilation.
rules for individuals. Someone says, I think genital mutilation is a good thing. You think that it's okay to restrict their access into the country?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that a little more.
Wait, you don't think that the country can say if you support genital mutilation, you're not allowed in?
No, I think there are a lot of beliefs that people have that are a bit bizarre and a bit different. And generally, like I wouldn't invite that person into my house, but I don't know. I'd have to think about like what threshold the government should have on that. But generally, if it's a political opinion that is nonviolent, which that one is kind of violent, if it's a nonviolent political opinion, I think you're good to go.
So let me play the role of Australia real quick.
Yeah.
Australia says Lauren Southern has had some conduct with a boat. And we think that her beliefs entail violence. And we've made that discretionary part
Well,
of
that
our
would be a bit hypocritical of Australia, considering they were a country that are rife with stopping boats coming in with illegal migrants.
That's like correct. But that's correct. But that's why people accuse you of hypocrisy, because when you have policies that are like you can't advocate for fucked up things, or you have policies that are based on cultural competency and language, it invites this kind of discretion that you don't like it when it's applied to you. And I almost got the sense from that video that, the rest of it, Lauren, to be honest with you, I thought it was very entertaining, but this part, it seemed like you felt you had an entitlement to be in the country of Australia. In Australia,
I think when your opinions particularly are very in line with most of the country, which there is a solid group in the country that completely align with my views, I think that discretion or that character assessment is happening purely because the individuals in that office are bigoted against right-wingers, against people that politically disagree with them. I don't think it's like some massive issue with, this is going to fundamentally, affect our culture as Australia. Because no, I agree with most Australians. Most Australians I meet, pretty conservative, pretty anti, big progressive policy. Yeah, maybe there's a decent amount of progressives too, but that's like a natural split in the country already. When we're talking about cultural differences of like Islamic culture versus Western culture, that's an entirely different question than left versus right, in my opinion. Because left versus right is already intrinsic. Right? It's already intrinsic within the Australian culture, is having these two political opinions disagreeing with each other.
And so because your opinions are, within line of some acceptable range of scope in Australia, your political opinions should not be subject to additional scrutiny. But maybe you haven't made your mind up. The political opinions related to genital mutilation, that's outside of some band of normalcy that you've decided.
Yeah,
and so,
actually, that's a good way of putting it.
Sure. Really?
So other than FGM, what would you say, what parts of Islamic culture do you think are incompatible with like Western culture?
I don't think this is something that many Muslims would disagree with either, but I think there's a lot of their policies, certainly within more radical sects. Not we're not talking like Sufi, people who believe a lot of the battle is a spiritual battle and not a physical one, right? But sects that believe in, women shouldn't have rights, women shouldn't be able to drive, you should be stoned for being raped, you should. If you're homosexual, you should be hanged. It's funny enough, this should be the stuff progressives are jumping up and down about, but that typically doesn't mix in well.
So I would say
culture.
that
And I think
some of these things though are things that I see as a flaw in all religions, really. Certainly we can say that there's certain sects of Islam that are more radical.
I don't think
and
you see any
definitely-
Christian countries really having the same actual execution, for lack of a better word, of this kind of policy.
Yeah, again, there
Not to the same degree anyway.
there are sects of Islam that are certainly way more extremist, but I would say that there are still Islamic or Muslim countries that have pretty reasonable laws, I think.
So the question is, who defines what reasonable
I won't
is?
disagree with that. But
who
like,
defines
for
what
things that
reasonable
literally, things that don't fit. I think the easiest way is if it doesn't fit in with like our legal criteria. So like, if
But there
you
are
can't take an
Christians
ID
who want
photo
the
without a
same thing for
hijab,
women,
then sure.
right? There
And
are
if they
tons of,
can't,
like, I'm sure you've met plenty of Christian
if
nationalists
their
who
framework for how they live does not fit in with our own laws, like if they're a Christian that's like, nope, for an ID photo, for any of this, I refuse to take off, my mask, whatever it is. Well, that you're gonna have a lot of trouble assimilating to the things that make this country run.
Okay, wait, real quick, just as a quick guiding thing, because Pisco mentioned this earlier, and I think it's important. I think if to argue against Pisco's point, I don't think you can ever invoke the word law, because I think what Pisco is getting at is that in your prior stuff, you're never concerned with the law. You might say that you defend legal immigration, but most of the arguments that you make are arguments of cultural homogeneity or cultural assimilation,
and how they should inform law destiny.
Yeah, exactly. But then you can't just say like, well, this is legal, because in that case, like the mass immigration to a lot of countries, in Sweden, that was all done legally, but you're opposed to that, and so there seems to be something extra you're getting at there rather than just legal grounds. It's not just the law that you're concerned with; it's some overriding.
My primary criticism of immigration has almost always been I'd say 90% of my immigration focus has been on just the illegality of it. That has been 90% of my focus.
So wait, so then are you okay?
I have a problem with Australia. I mean, what's your problem with Australia? They denied you legally. Oh, actually, they didn't deny you, right? They gave you a visa.
I don't think you understood what I was saying. I applied legally.
Yeah. Well, no, I understand that.
My biggest critique is people who come into countries illegally. That's my biggest.
So you applied legally, but you were given a condition of that residency. Is that correct? You were given a condition.
Yes, an arbitrary condition that is not applied.
It's not arbitrary. Australia has passed a law.
No, because it's based on our character assessment. It's the individual that has decided. If a communist applied and was like hardcore into communist activism, I reckon they wouldn't be given the same scrutiny.
So are you against those laws? I mean, those exist in America. There's laws related to communists and
I think you can actually get rejected from the U.S. for being a communist.
Yeah.
They ask you on your forms whether or not you've ever.
Can you give me an example? Can you give me an example of a communist that has been rejected in the last 20 years? Yeah. Throw it out there. Let's hear.
There's a case where a professor was invited by multiple schools. I think the case is called Shaughnessy or something like that. But that case involved a professor who was applying to have speaking tours in the United States, and the attorney general at that time, who was in charge of immigration matters, denied him. Totally arbitrary. Just did not allow him into the country to do his speaking tour.
Okay,
it's happened.
Can you find me? Wait, no. I want to look this up. What's the professor's name?
Okay.
What's the case called? I'm really curious.
Someone can. Okay, 1 second. I'll find the case.
Well, and actually, I can even toss you like an article here. As part of the naturalization process, would-be citizens must prove an attachment to the Constitution and have a favorable disposition to the good order of the United States, according to the general naturalization requirements by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services (USCIS). An attachment to the Communist Party, a totalitarian organization or terrorist group, may indicate a lack of attachment to the Constitution. The applicant cannot become a citizen if they are a member of the Communist Party or have been within the past 10 years, have advocated communism's establishment in the U.S., have published or circulated subversive materials advocating communism, or are affiliated with any groups that do so. This restriction stems from the 1952 McCarran-Walter Act. So in the U.S., as part of your assessment for immigration, you could get rejected on the basis of supporting like communist regimes or being part of a communist party. Or
there's a bunch of cases. Harris-Sides versus Shaughnessy. This is not the professor case. That's one where people were ordered deported in the United States because of their previous membership in the Communist Party. Some of the most famous immigration cases are about communists. Mazai. This is the case.
Wait, are you talking about this Cold War thing from the 50s?
Yeah.
So does that still exist?
Okay, here's another one: Kleindienst versus Mandel.
No. Wait. Does that still exist?
I believe that the immigration authority used in those cases is discretionary, and the attorney general can decide, like, on any basis, whatever they deem to their discretion to exclude people. You see, the president of the United States was able to use the suspension clause to deny whole classes of people entrance to the United States. And so there are absolutely still discretions that members of the executive department can take to deny people on the basis of their political affiliation. Yes, in the United States, it's not a violation of the First Amendment.
The Immigration and Nationality Act was enacted in 1952. The INA provisions.
Anyway, all I'm suggesting to you is that for a long time, it's a historical grounded principle that countries reject individuals because of their political affiliations. That's in our history. We still do it a lot of time with people, and there's no very limited First Amendment avenue for you to say that law is unconstitutional.
Wait. No, I'm looking at this section.
Just to be clear, that 1952 thing, that's still U.S. law. That's, yeah.
They said it's been amended, so I want to read the amendment.
Well, there's probably been added things to it, but the communist.
The timeliness is not important to my argument, Laura. Whether or not it's enacted now, or whether or not it's enacted in the 20th century, why does that matter to you?
I would disagree. I would disagree with that law.
Okay,
I'm curious if it still exists.
You're not letting me play out my. Okay, it may exist, it may not exist. I'm trying to play out a thought pattern with you, and that you think that rejecting certain candidates because of things that we would consider speech is okay for some people, right? For some people that you would consider radical.
No, generally, I would not support restricting people because
let's do some as applied.
99.9% of my problems with immigration is people just illegally.
So let's do some as applied challenges. So if Nick Fuentes applied for admission into Australia and he was denied because of bad moral character, would you say that was right or wrong?
Wrong.
Okay. If a typical Muslim who, whatever that means to you, Lauren, were to apply for entrance into Australia or into America, and they were denied on the basis of good moral character, would you be against that or in favor of that?
If a typical Muslim was rejected for just being Muslim?
No. They say you fail. Your beliefs, Islam, are to show that you have no good moral character.
I'd be against that. Against that. Because I think that there are people. I was just hanging out with some redneck Muslims the other night. I think there are people that can assimilate perfectly fine if they want to learn the language, if they're not going to live in enclaves, if they're going to.
This person says
part of the economy. I think there are people that can assimilate just fine. I think in mass amounts, and when you have enclaves forming, that's a problem. But that doesn't mean I think you should start rejecting people's immigration application because of their religion or because of their political beliefs. No. I think 99% of these problems would be solved if we just stopped illegal immigration and had some,
defining what is legal and illegal. And so you saying that we stop.
People that aren't even freaking applying in the first place, like they're not even going through the process at all.
But your arguments, I don't think, rely on following to some extent the formalisms of the law, but they more have to do with cultural competency and cultural assimilation. Is that not the bedrock of your immigration advocacy?
Yeah, I think that's extremely important. And I think that, if you have every country should not just allow open borders. So you should have kind of a limit to the amount of migration you let in for the sake of your
don't you think that
for the sake of wait. Can you let me finish? For the sake of your country, you do have to have some sort of limitations on the amount of people that come in. And when picking those people, they should be people that are probably going to be the most culturally similar. So if you have two people and they've got all the same, wealth background, all the same skills, and one of them is going to be more culturally similar to your country, that's probably the person that should be prioritized. But that doesn't mean have a all across the board law that's like we're rejecting people because of their politics or religion. No, I don't support
that. Or because of their culture, right? Or because of their culture.
No, I don't support that.
So you don't support immigration policies based on an individual's culture?
It depends if the culture also means that they're incapable of assimilating.
Which cultures would you cite as examples?
We've gone through this. I feel like we're dancing in loops. If you're part of a culture and it's like your core belief that, women shouldn't have rights, we should execute gays. Have you ever, I'll buy you a one-way ticket to the Middle East. You can spend some time there and let me know.
Well, I'm asking you, would that so Middle Eastern culture? That'd be an example of a culture that you think.
And there are within there's many obviously countries within the Middle East that have varying different cultures. Fuck, like Lebanon has 1,000 just in itself, but there are cultures, enclaves within there that do have that.
So make your rule statement. What's your rule statement then? What's the
also
law?
Actual Justice Warrior just made a really good point. He's in my chat. He said member of the Communist Party during the Cold War is an espionage issue. Member of a terrorist organization or advocating for overthrowing the U.S. government or whatever government is also different from just opinions.
Being members of a communist party is, you think that should
when
be
you're in
the law?
Do I think it should be against the law?
Should it be against the law to be a member of the Communist Party?
In the United States, it depends which party and what's going on in the world. Like, do you think that they should be allowing Russian political officials into Ukraine right now uncritically?
Well, I asked you a question as applied to America. In America,
well, it depends on the context. If the U.S. is in a war actively with a country and they've got a communist party that's running the country, then you're probably going to have some issues.
So if a country had, like, let's say,
so.
if a country said to itself that we have a problem with alt-right propaganda in this country, I'm not saying that you are alt-right, but that although Destiny did, and they determined that that you are going to make that problem worse. Why could you take issue with Australia?
We're not at war with individuals with opinions. That's like way overstepping the government. If you're in an active like government versus government, country versus country war, yeah, you can probably consider, having a little more criticism, be a little more critical about who's coming in and out of your country from this other place. But you're talking about the government going to war with its own citizens and their opinions. That's very different. Damn it, Actual Justice Warrior said, nope, not joining, stop asking. I was about to invite you too.
Testing.
Hi, you got cut off, or you got dropped for a sec.
It seems like that's a standard, when circumstances call for it and when it's in the national interest, countries should be able to.
Yeah, but clearly circumstances didn't call for it because they would have had just an outright ban.
Lauren Southern doesn't get to.
No, listen. The problem wasn't that I had the opinions that I have. They're fine with that. They just don't want me sharing them. So I'm allowed to be in the country, running around, talking to people on a private level about my opinions. They're perfectly fine with my opinions being in the country. They're not that dangerous. They just want to stifle my ability to communicate them with.
Chat, I wanted so badly to continue that conversation on Islam and Western culture.
In which you manifest your opinions that you take issue with, not the opinions that
they're trying to stifle the sharing of certain political opinions, even if they don't think having those political opinions in the first.
So badly. It was so fucking interesting. Oh my god. I was so excited for that.
Immigrate every freaking day that have the same opinions as me. The problem was they just figured they could use this as a way to prevent the sharing of political opinions that they dislike.
You agree that there should be restrictions based on good moral character, correct? You're okay with those restrictions?
I don't think the government can define that. I don't think the government
should define
what good moral character is. No, I think the government can't define that.
Okay, but they can define which cultures are problematic and incompatible.
No, this is why you need to look at things like you have to have actual objective.
Can you answer that question?
Lists to look at.
You trust?
No, I don't trust the government. No, I don't trust the government. I don't trust the government.
Can you answer my question? My question.
I'm so sorry to cut in. I know that Lauren is running short on time, but I wanted to ask if we could maybe set up like a separate time. I'd love to have more of a discussion with you on the whole compatibility with Western culture discussion.
Yeah, I'd be happy to have that. I love someone in my chat was just like, imagine letting in someone you think is a terrorist as long as they don't write books or share their opinions publicly. Yeah, they don't think I'm a terrorist. That's why.
Hold on, wait, just real quick on that comment. To be fair, that is essentially what you're saying, though, right? Like you're saying that, like, if somebody wants to come hold on, wait.
That's not what I'm saying at all.
Wait, by what you said, that's almost exactly what you said, right? If I take two radical Muslims, but one of them like isn't trying to radicalize people, he just wants to like set up shop, like make a fucking bodega and sell shit to people. You're like, oh, this guy can come in the country. But if there's another guy that's running around like trying to radicalize people, preaching their political opinion, you say, I don't really know about this guy. Like I think maybe this guy is a little bit more incompatible in the country. That is kind of what you're saying. And by kind of, I mean almost exactly. No, I think you'd be okay with the former and against the latter in that case.
Chat, I'm getting cucked. Actively getting cucked right now.
Contradiction is that Lauren Southern trusts the government to doesn't trust the government to define what good moral character is, but does trust the government to say what cultures are we compatible with. How do you square that circle? You don't trust them to define it.
Actual Justice Warrior, who I wish would join this call, just made a great point. He said, letting her in after she quit publicly sharing her opinions proves they didn't think she was a threat. It quite literally means she must just not talk about them.
Wait, just to be clear, that's not what that proves. What it proves is that they think that sharing of those opinions massively was the threat.
I'm going to ask the question once more. You don't trust the government to define an individual's good moral character, but you do trust the government to define on a societal level what cultures are compatible or not, and then apply that to individuals.
You can look at some cultural things and point to language. You can point to laws. You can point to some objective standards there. I don't think the government should have any policies that are just sweeping without any sort of objective pinpoints we're looking at. Sweeping, like, we just get to make this decision.
Let's make it objective. Okay, let's make it totally objective. You tell me you agree with objective. If you say that your culture, or that you're part of a culture that doesn't respect democracy, should they let you in?
How do you find a culture that doesn't respect democracy?
You tell me. That's what you're okay.
No, I don't. I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying. This whole conversation, I've been telling you, I don't think people should just be restricted from countries just because of their culture. I think that having something like VACU and having the character assessment allows for far too much discretion. Should there be some? Yes. But I think it should be based on some pinpoints that are objective that you can look at. So it's just not one person saying, don't like that person's political opinions. That person rubs me the wrong way because of, random reason that isn't something that can be objectively codified.
Okay, so is it all going to ground down to the language requirement is the only thing that is objective enough for you?
That's a massive one, and that would actually reduce a lot of our problems. But
okay, listen, I know that you have to leave, and so I'm not going to belabor it. I think there's a huge contradiction here. I think that culture is at sort of the intersection of speech and ideas, and the fact that you're willing to grant the government, I guess, some authority to define, even on an objective level, before it's actually being applied to individuals, but in the discretionary decision of what legislation to take up and what restrictions to even put in place before you get to applying them. Maybe you apply them totally consistent, but the selection of a standard, that itself is a
Dude, I'll tell you right now, if anyone were treated the same way as me, if there were a Muslim speaker that they decided to allow in the country, as long as he quit politics and quit speaking about his opinions, I'd have just as much a problem with that as I have with mine, because it shows that, no, it actually isn't about the culture. It actually isn't about having this person in your... Because the reality is I can share my views with Australians outside of Australia. I don't have to be in Australia. My stuff is YouTube, right? But I think it were pretty bullshit if there were a Muslim guy that were sharing his views on YouTube anyway, that were told you have to quit that in order to enter our country. They don't see him as a risk. They're looking to stifle someone's speech using their own government policies.
And speech is really important to you, right? Speech is your life. Yeah, speech is one of the most important things in your entire life, correct? And you sacrifice that to be with your family. Is that right?
Yeah.
Where is the sympathy in your heart? Where is the... how can you say that it's unjust for this government to put a restriction on you to see your family? And really, they just gave you a visa, and then not see the droves of people who want to be reunited with their families in the United States, and with total apathy, advocate for policies that severely restrict their reunification.
I have sympathy for them, but you have to go through the legal route. I had to wait months. I have not seen my family for a long, long time going through the proper legal routes. And you bet your ass if I weren't trying to do that properly, I'd be tempted to go and do it illegally. But I know there are processes that I have to freaking follow, right? And it pisses me off just as much having to deal with these policies as it would anyone else. And I have a lot of freaking for these people, but that doesn't mean you throw your laws out the window just because we feel sad about it.
We're defining what the laws are, and you're in favor of laws that would make it much harder for individuals to reunify in the United States and in the West. Is that right?
fulfill the requirements necessary, like you're going to have to go in and be on government assistance, if you're going to go in and not be able to communicate with the people around you, yes, I can feel really, really bad for you and still say this is not going to be a functioning system if our immigration laws do not have some sort of standards.
And that's
There
pretty
are
much what they
some
said of
things we
you.
have to do. There are some things we have to do in life that kind of suck, that aren't that great. They don't make you feel too good, but they have to be done or things are going to get a lot worse.
Isn't that what Australia did to you? Isn't that what Australia did to you?
No, their
Australia
reason
tells
was
you
absolute bullshit. It had
Australia
nothing
lets
to do
you
with
into-
me not being able to afford. It had nothing to do with me not being able to speak the language. It had nothing to do with me not being able to assimilate with the culture because I have the opinion of 50% of the fucking country. It has
the
to do
people
with the
with
fact that
bad
they wanted
moral
to stifle
character.
my free speech. They let me in the country anyways. It's absolute
It's
bullshit
right.
that you're trying to compare these things, Pisco.
No. Just bear with me for a second. Whether or not you think that your particular ground and the restriction that you had, remember, you were led into the country, is you think this is totally unjustifiable. And you think that this is a total miscarriage, and that countries, okay, they can have good moral character standards, but
you know what?
Can I finish my thought?
I wish AJ. No, you can't. You're just spewing bullshit. I wish AJW were in here. He's like, reuniting with your third cousin twice removed is not the same thing as separating a married couple. America pretty much is pretty damn cool with reuniting married couples. When you're talking about people coming from Mexico, it's typically the situation AJW is referring to here. Not that I don't have sympathy with them. I just covered this topic, but a lot of it is just because they want to get the illegal way to immigrate into the country.
Then great. I'll ask you the question. So any kind of cultural competency requirements, you would be in favor of those being waived for close familial relationships? Any language requirement?
I don't know. That's not the question. I have to think about that one a little more.
You wouldn't be in favor of you want to get families together. Don't you think America, if it's going to impose an English requirement, shouldn't they waive that for reuniting families?
If you can't fulfill the English requirement, they have processes you can go through, taking your courses. Before you go there, you can even pay while you're waiting for your visa to be substantiated.
I'll ask
you have
again,
to take language courses. I think that's perfectly reasonable. If you go to, I have friends. I had a friend who moved to Vienna to be with her husband, and she had to do language courses for the whole year before her full visa could be substantiated.
So it's reasonable for the government to say to someone who's never been in the country, but who has a close familial relationship in the country, that means husband, wife, maybe child over 21, whatever you want to say. It's reasonable for the government to say, learn a whole language, but it's not reasonable for Australia to say, Lauren Southern, while you're here, you shall not engage in public life. One is reasonable, and the other is not.
Absolutely.
And the answer is because
the fact that you're even comparing those two is insane.
The reason is because the things related to your conduct or misconduct, as the Australian government,
me speaking publicly and having opinions that half the fucking nation have, is not going to impede my ability to speak to other people,
the possibility
participate in the economy, to
have you
do all
considered
these
the
things that are
possibility
necessary that isn't a drain on the country?
Have you considered the possibility the reason that you were restricted to coming to the country isn't because of your what you said, but what you did previously?
If that were the case, then they would have barred me regardless of me stepping out of public life.
Why does that follow? That logically follows? That logically follows that the restriction they put in must be related
because
to...
if it were about some sort of action that they were afraid that I was going to repeat some sort of I could do that anyways without having a public profile.
Didn't the words they say because of your engagement in public life?
Yeah.
Okay, so wouldn't that include, is public life only public speech? Isn't it activism? Isn't it things you do as well as things you say?
I can still do activism while not being a public personality, right?
Perhaps, but you don't know that their decision to restrict your access was because of things you said or things you did.
Yeah, well, either way, they let me in after I quit public life, so I think that's pretty damning.
And they let you in.
I do have to. I'm getting late for
okay
barbecue that I need to go to. So always love yelling at you, though, Pisco. I'll have you on again.
Yeah. Happy to chat again.
All right, have a good one, guys.
Have fun. Be careful.
Thanks.
Bye. Leave.
Jesus Christ, Pisco.
How do
you think that conversation went?
I think it's really telling that it's so hard to extract an answer from Lauren with respect to what kind of speech-related activities she thinks it's okay to restrict access for incoming people.
Mhm.
And she answers right away with respect to Nick Fuentes and herself. Right away, she knows that it's wrong, but she's not so sure that a belief in female genital mutilation that should be a belief which does or does not cause you to be inadmissible to a country.
I think to ease out of the wiggling around so much is what was happening. I think it probably would have been good at the beginning of the convo to hammer because this is a question that never really got answered. And I think because it didn't get answered, it let the conversation slide around so much. Is what are reasonable standards by which a country should be able to evaluate the worthiness of an immigrant? I think that would have been a good question because chances are she can't give a good answer to that because I think either one, she can list an answer that is loose enough that lets her come through, which if that's the case, it's probably going to let a whole bunch of people through that she would have literally had videos on her channel advocating against. Or two, it's going to be so stringent so as to keep out all those people that it probably would restrict her as well, Because I think towards the end of the convo, I think there were some things that she was saying about well, I think anybody should be allowed to as long as they can speak the language and contribute financially. And I was like, okay, well, what about when you made that video walk around Paris looking at all those Muslims?
Yeah.
Do you know if those guys could speak French? Maybe they all spoke the language, but it seems like you have another problem there related to culture, not just a language and financial means, I think that hammering out that would have let you move the conversation further because it seems like it kept going back to that, well, what are the laws or whatever, when obviously you're having a discussion about the law, not, I think that probably would have helped.
We were having a conversation about what we want the law to be. And it is really frustrating every time to say, well, I just want people to do it legally. We're defining what it is that we want to be legal.
That's like saying, should I be able to steal or not? And it's well, I just want people to act moral. Well, hold on. We're trying to figure out what those actions even are. That's the subject of the conversation, right?
And it's so, to me, she's defining what is permissible and what's impermissible for the government to restrict access to immigration on. And it's totally permissible for the government to say, well, because you maybe aren't in this particular visa category or you're not a skilled laborer, that's a justified reason by which to stop someone from let's say reuniting with their grandparents.
Sure.
But saying something radical about I don't know, maybe if you're a right-wing radical, that would not be a sufficient ground for a country in their own decision in terms of sovereignty to let you into their country.
Sure. Which I think is a position you could have, but I don't think she would ever hold that for Islamic immigrants, right?
Yeah. I think that's right.
She would want hardcore cultural prosecute the idea that as long as you speak the language you can earn money, you're fine. That's actually the libertarian position. That's more further left than most progressives. To just say that you can just economically sort yourself out is the hardcore libertarian stance. But obviously, I think due to her past videos and probably what she even currently believes, I would imagine, she wants more qualifications than just that. Also, this would have just derailed it harder, but she kept saying I align with 50% of people's beliefs. That's probably not true as well. If there's any way to quantify it, in Canada, she voted for the PBC, which I'm pretty sure got 1% of the votes. So that's farther right than where the average sits. I don't think the average Australian, even conservative, is where her positions are. But that would be a totally different fight to have, probably, right?
And I think that if you gave, I don't know how she would answer this question. If a country said, a famous Islamic preacher were to come into the country and try to gain access to the country and to preach Wahhabist Islam.
Yeah.
Would she be okay with a country denying access to that prominent Islamist preacher?
Yeah, that was the example that I gave, I think. I was if somebody wants to come in and they believe in fundamentalist Islam, but they don't say much about it, or they just they work a bodega and everybody's chill, you'd probably be okay with that. But if they wanted to come in and start preaching radical Islam, you'd probably not be okay with that. So that's literally, the subject there is not their beliefs, it's actually their ability to propagate.
Which is essentially what happened with her.
Yeah,
at
that's
least
what it seems like.
From the estimate of the Australian government. And I really want her to answer that question. Is she okay with the government saying no to this radical preacher? Let's say that he's white. Let's say that he's speaking in English. And I have to believe that someone that she perceives to be possible in terms of radicalizing large groups of people to Islamism, that she would think it's totally fine for a country to deny
absolutely
admission.
Of course, right? Yeah.
But
or
not
at least I would imagine. I can't imagine escaping that conclusion, right? Otherwise, like, what is like all of the, because everything that we're talking about in the past, she also said this a few times, which is totally not true, but it would be a different conversation. She kept saying her only problem was with illegal immigration. That's not true.
No.
When we talk about Sweden, our issue there isn't illegal immigration. When we talk about most of Europe, the issue there isn't illegal immigration. When we talk about the United States, even most of the conversation doesn't even revolve around illegal immigration. And she hasn't said that in the past. Her term has very specifically been mass migration, not mass illegal immigration, right?
You kept mentioning enclaves.
Mhm.
That doesn't help her, right? That doesn't help her, because if the government could say something like, we're worried Lauren is going to make splinter cells or enclaves of right-wing thoughts or insular communities, or someone could, I don't know, the same thing with the hypothetical preacher. And that wouldn't really help her. The thing that's driving the distinction, I feel, and I think it's obvious, is a normative one. She thinks her beliefs are less corrosive to society than Islamism. That's her belief. And so all this thing about it shouldn't be based on your free speech, that's all bullshit. The real rationale, I think, and everyone knows it, is she doesn't think her views are damaging. She thinks those other people's views are damaging. And I think that the use of free speech as a shield in this case, in an area of discretion where historically countries have used it to for good moral character, what have you, that's just a shield. That's just a facade. What's really driving her argument, and the reason why she was having difficulty with the hypos about female genital mutilation, is because she just thinks her views are better and less corrosive than the Islamism views.
Sure, probably. This is kind of like when I say like people are pro-democracy or pro-whatever. I don't think they're actually pro the thing. They're just pro whatever they like perceive at the time as like supporting the thing that they believe in, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the question that you're hitting at is like, I imagine that in another conversation, like if it was two conservatives talking and then Lauren talking, and somebody were to say like, don't you think a country has a right to decide who comes into their country? Don't you think a country has a right to determine who gets in? Everybody would be like, yeah, of course. Oh, yeah, soy, of course. Yeah. But it's like, oh, okay, well, here a country's done just that. And it's like, okay, whoa, hold on. Like, I disagree with how they make that decision. I was like, well, okay, but that like, there's a lot of Muslims that would disagree with how certain countries make the decisions about who they let in, right? So who's to say who's right or wrong on that, unless you're appealing to either one, some supranational organization, which conservatives say, or two, you're just basically saying like, well, I morally agree with this position, so I should be allowed in, and everyone else can fuck off because they don't agree with me, basically, right?
Yeah. The next time we talk, I'm gonna let her know. I'm gonna want her to like tell me what policies she wants to be implemented in the United States. I think that that's not unreasonable for me to ask. She's an immigration advocate.
That's what I was going to say. What you should have started with, I think, was like getting an ironed out answer of like, what should a government be allowed to determine for like an immigrant coming to the country? What should be allowed? Because that's why I said, like, I think that she's going to set a like there is a bar that she can set, but it's either going to be so high that she can't pass, or low enough for her to pass that would let in a whole bunch of people that historically she's probably been against. Yeah, there's no way around that. And I think if you would have started there, then the conversation probably would have gotten a little bit more.
I had an idea of where I was going to go, but I was trying to be respectful and let her, and not just lead her the whole time.
Sure,
but she would just go on, and so I think that she realizes that there's some contradiction that
probably
needs to be ironed out. And I think that it's not unreasonable for me to ask, give me the policy that you want President DeSantis in 2024 to sign. What is it that what kind of restriction do you want? Like, give us a law that would not be apt for rampant abuse of discretion, the likes of which you claim has been done unto you. Yeah. And if you're going to say something like the Attorney General gets to determine which cultures are harmful, and anyone who's part of that culture gets extra screening. Like, what does that look like? What are you asking for?
Because the idea that character, again, is just language and economic ability, that's the libertarian position. And far-right people don't agree with the libertarian position. They want a culture test. Yeah.
They want a culture test, and to pretend they don't, and they just want some limits on immigration, like numbers limits. We already have numbers limits on immigrations, but you'll notice at the end there, she cites actual justice warrior, whoever's in her chat. Is that the person? Who's like, but in America, we have unlimited visas for people who are close familial relationships. That's actually true. There are unlimited.
She'd probably be opposed to that.
Why would you be in favor of that? Yeah. Unlimited green card visa, like for people who get married to someone? Why on earth would you? It's a way to have your cake and eat it too. It's a way for you to be like, well, I'm okay with that because I think it's wrong that Australia would deny me from seeing my family. And so I'm okay with that in America. But unless you don't speak the language, then family reunification is not a big enough deal. There's always a caveat. There's always an exception that's going to keep her in and keep out people she doesn't like. And I think if you pull on those exceptions, they start to unravel.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, that's it for me, buddy. Thank you for having me.
Well,
Later,
I
guys.
don't
Thank
think
you.
you thank Stardust.
Oh,
She's one of
Stardust.
the
Yeah,
best ones.
Stardust.
Jesus
Thank you so
Christ.
much.
Yeah, no
Sorry I got
problem.
mad at you.
No problem. Thanks for joining. It was very interesting. So,
Of course.
yeah, and hopefully I'll just bug her for another conversation. So
I'm down
yeah,
for it any day.
yeah,
Thank you, Lycan, too.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Love you.
Cool. See you guys.
Bye.
Love you. Be careful, babes.
Yeah.